So today I would like to introduce you to my latest speaker, which you can see here in the background. Since my previous speaker design, I think it's been nearly 2 years. I've been using them every day for my desktop PC, so watching movies, YouTube. And now I've sort of had again the motivation to try a new project. So I said, okay, I have done the desktop speakers, so why not move on to maybe something a little bit bigger. And in this case it's going to be sort of for my home cinema setup. At the moment it's just 2 speakers, so it's a stereo configuration, but I mean I intend to use them also for music, so in that case right now the stereo setup is quite nice. So obviously I'm using a 3D printer to build the speaker enclosures, and unlike I would say in sort of more traditional speakers where wood is the material of choice, for a 3D printer obviously you have much more flexibility in how you can design your speakers. And for me I wanted to create a speaker which is not just acoustically nice, but it should also be a furniture piece, so you should be able to sort of enjoy just the visual, the aesthetic side of it. And obviously I'm trying to make here a speaker that looks sort of timeless, and after sort of researching on the internet and looking at all sorts of objects, what is possible, I sort of found that the most simple object, which has been around for centuries, are vases. So the concept of this speaker is to sort of follow the design principles of a vase, and then combine that with a speaker. And obviously one of the key elements of a vase is its opening on the top. So I think in the past it was either vases were obviously used for decoration, and maybe had some flowers in it or whatever. And obviously a speaker needs a port, so that you can then move the air in and out of the speaker enclosure. So for me this was sort of like the perfect object because of sort of function by design. So it's already a tried and proven concept, and now I just sort of had to combine the two. So since I have a two-way speaker basically with a mid bass, and what I use is a ribbon tweeter, I decided to go for the sort of this double gourd shape. In the bottom part of the speaker I'm using the mid bass, and then in the top it has the tweeter. And it's, I would say, from the aesthetics, I actually quite like it. For the colorway I also chose something very simple, so it's just sort of like a black and white look, so it is sort of a bit futuristic in a way, but the shape itself I would say is very traditional. So it has sort of these 2 elements which I'm combining, and I don't know, just looking at it, it feels like a very timeless piece. So I feel like even in a few years or so, I feel like I'm not going to get sick of it. Sometimes when you have very complicated shapes or so, it's very pleasing at the beginning, but I think over time it sort of loses a bit of its appeal. And with this speaker I'm sort of trying to hope for really sort of a timeless thing, and also sort of an object that you can just place into your living room, and even if you're not using it, it doesn't feel like it's taking up space. It sort of contributes to the overall atmosphere of the room. And I don't know, I was sort of thinking a bit sometimes about maybe like a couple. Obviously the guy would then be very much into like just the quality of the speaker, sort of really high fidelity, good sound, whereas maybe the female partner would be more like into like the aesthetics. How does this fit into the room? Does it, fit to the overall atmosphere? And with this speaker I'm sort of trying to combine the 2 areas, which is sort of the sciencey part, the acoustics. Does the speaker sound good? But also from the design, from the aesthetics, is it sort of like a cool furniture piece? If friends come over, you obviously get a comment on this. If it was just a regular speaker, it would probably just blend in, and it wouldn't really stand out. So that's sort of what I tried to do with the speaker. I did show it to some friends, I did do some different tests with different music, and I must say. The quality of the sound I think has improved over my previous speaker. So one important part when designing a speaker is the so-called crossover network. As you can sort of see in the background, the speaker is a two-way speaker, and when the audio signal reaches the tweeter, what you have to basically do is split it up, where one part of the audio signal drives the lower part of the speaker, and one part of the audio signal drives the upper part of the speaker. The crossover network sort of decides from which frequency which driver should be driven, and I basically use the different technical data from the different drivers, and then sort of try to match that the audio signal is very neutral sounding, which means that independent of the frequency of the audio signal, the speaker response is fairly consistent. Because if you would want to avoid that, if you have a signal that's maybe then like a bassy signal that's really loud, and then when you get to the highs it's really low. Obviously for some types of music you'd maybe want to focus on a certain sound profile, but this is easily done once the speaker is completed. You can do this via equalizers, but for me I try to make a very neutral sounding speaker, so both the drivers are equally loud, and then that sort of gives later on the flexibility to adjust it if necessary. You can adjust the equalizer in your receiver, or if you're on your computer via sort of the sound card settings. So I think this is one important part of the design phase in the speaker from the acoustics. Another critical element of speaker design is the volume of the enclosure, and this is very critical for the bass or the mid bass. So if you look sort of at the lower part, there's lots of volume here, and you need this volume to define sort of how the low frequencies sound like. So here I basically just followed the technical data which was available for the driver, and then created sort of this fishbowl looking part of the speaker to have the right enclosure volume to generate the frequency response that I was looking for. So functionally speaking, the speaker is actually built up in two parts. It's basically the bottom part and the top part. For the bottom part, you have to create a enclosure volume, so there needs to be a certain amount of volume within the enclosure to make sure that the bass sounds how it's intended to sound like. And since this is a ported speaker, all of the air can sort of move in and out of the speaker depending on the frequency. And one cool thing is when using the 3D printer and designs that are 3D printable, you can create very interesting internal structures. There's actually no airflow between the tweeter part of the speaker and the mid-bass part of the speaker. And what basically happens is there's an internal tube or port that then guides the air through the top part of the speaker to the outside. And that's why the location of the port is on the top, and not in the rear or in the front, as you can see on many other traditional speakers. So I feel like that's a very cool design element, which obviously also ties in very nicely with the Vase concept of the speaker.